Okay, so you were asking about the side cutter attachment feet and how they work. So I thought I could do a quick demo and show you how these work. So these kind of take the place of your overcasting feet. So like this G foot here is an overcasting foot. So it has a little flange here, like I was explaining in another video, and the needle goes over this bar, and that bar is a retaining bar for the thread to keep it from like pulling and scrunching and curling your edges in. And then you use the guide on the side of the foot here to guide your fabric around along, so you have a perfect straight edge. Okay, so if you don't have a serger or an overcasting foot, or if you have a fabric that frays very, very easily, like this is cheap muslin, it frays super easily, then you could use something like a side cutter foot to take the place of a serger. It doesn't replace a serger, in my opinion. A serger is definitely well worth the investment. Okay, this is a serger. A serger is 10 times faster. These are super slow, which there's nothing wrong with that. But a serger is so much faster. It gives you a nice, much cleaner polished edge. Okay, it encases the edges fully, so there's literally no fraying can happen here. Plus it gives you a straight edge on the inside. So if you're doing like construction garments or bags or anything, you can use this on the inside and you have a clean polished edge as well as your straight stitch. Okay, so again, these don't replace, but they do help emulate if you don't have one. So what do these do? These cut the edges as you're sewing, so you have a fresh clean edge with no fraying, and then they encase the edges depending on what stitch you're going to use. Okay, so this one is found on Amazon. This is a RTC10 is the model number. Okay, RTC10, I don't know what brand it is. It's made in Japan. These are great. This one here is about 25 bucks, 30 bucks on Amazon. There are cheaper ones that look like this. I would not get one of those. Okay, you want one that has a solid base, solid foot that doesn't flop around. Okay, this is going to be a better option for you. That's secondary though. Okay, but they are cheaper. This one here is a Brother brand side cutter foot. Okay, this is my preferred option. These are a little more expensive. They're about $50, but that's still a lot more cost effective than putting forth the money for a full serger. Okay, so this has, just like the G foot, okay, there's a little flange there. This has that same flange, and then it also has markers just like you would on a serger, so you can put your fabric along the edges and get that perfect seam allowance that you're looking for. Okay, so how do these work? When the feet move up and down, there's a little blade right here. Okay, it's a very sharp blade. When the foot moves up and down, it actually cuts the fabric. This is why it's a little bit slower. Okay, on your machine. Plus, this is a heavy-duty foot. That's a substantial foot there. I like this one, and I prefer this one not only because you don't have to unscrew your ankle, take off this here, and finagle it around, do all that just like you do with a regular walking foot. This one here is just a snap-on, so it'll fit any low shank presser foot system. Okay, so if your machine is low shank, it'll use this connector here. Okay, so how do you install this? I like to put the fork on first. The fork goes onto the needle bar. Okay, I'm going to try to reach around my camera so I can stay out of the way. So I'm going to put this down and finagle it onto the fork. Now you do want to lift, give your foot a little extra lift, because the bar, can you see that there? The bar right here is just going to snap in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift the foot here, slide that under, and then make sure it snaps in place. Okay, give it a lift, give it a wiggle. We are intact. Now these feet are a little different. Okay, you can't just put your fabric under here, okay, and then start sewing. It's not going to work. So how does this work? You actually have to feed the fabric through the top. Let me get out of the way over here. Let's come above. Okay, so we're going to have to feed the fabric over the top of this foot here, the part of the foot there, and then go underneath the foot there. Okay, so we have to prep the fabric first, okay, because if you don't, your seam allowance is going to be crooked. Okay, so what we can do, we're going to take some scissors, grab over here, and we're going to cut into the seam allowance that we want. So let's just say, like if you're sewing along and you want there's a mark for your blade, and then these are your 1/4 inch seam allowances. So if you want one, say here, then you'll just mark that and cut right where that's going to cut. You see that? Okay, so I'm going to cut, I'm just going to guesstimate, it doesn't really matter, this is just a demo. So I'm just going to cut into my seam allowance, go about 3/4 of an inch or so. You don't have to go too far down. Okay, we're going to cut that little notch out. Well, it'd help if you could even see, sorry about that. Just cut a little notch out, okay? So now we're going to slide the fabric into the foot just far enough for the fabric to be underneath the needle here, okay? So you see that there? So we're just going to slide it just far enough, and then we want the notch part that we cut to be in front of this blade. Okay, set your foot down. Now we're going to go choose our stitches. So you can use any overcast stitch foot. Any overcast stitch is going to work for this foot. Okay, that's any of these from your zigzag stitch. You can even do a straight stitch. Does not matter. You can use them all with the overcast stitches. I like to use this row here. Okay, a lot of people don't know what these are for. We have S, P, and Q. Okay, Q is for quilting, P is for piecing, and S is for side cutter. So these stitches actually have settings specifically for the task at hand. So like I can't remember, but these are our normal utility stitches. So we have our plain stitch, our piecing stitches here, and then our utility stitches up here. They're essentially the same, except for they have different settings. Like I think the piecing has a shorter stitch length, and some of the quilting, they just have different settings for your stitch length and width over here, the preset in, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and use the S stitches. So I'm gonna use, this is my favorite, which is the ladder stitch. If you don't have it, you can use this stitch here, which does the exact same as the G foot, the overcasting foot. Okay, it'll do this exact same stitch. It looks exactly the same, looks identical. You won't be able to tell the difference. Okay, but I like to use this one. This one's the closest one to a serger stitch. Okay, so we're going to go down to our machine over here. Going to change, what number is that? 24. So because this is a side cutter foot stitch, it's telling us we need the side cutter foot. Okay, so we have a 5 width and a 2.5 length, okay, using this ladder stitch here. So if you don't have these side cutter stitches on your machine, don't worry, don't panic, you can still use this foot. What I would do first is you want to put your needle down by hand. So you turn your hand wheel from over the top towards you, okay? So we're going to put the needle down in the down position, give it a couple of rotations and see where that needle is going to fall, because you want that, let's see if I can get some light in here for you. You want that needle to clear this bar. If you hit that bar, you're going to break your needle and possibly break the foot. More likely break your needle and possibly untime your machine. Okay, so we're just going to give it a couple of rotations, make sure we're going to clear that bar. Perfect, it's right on the edge, exactly where we want. Now this machine, or this foot, I'm sorry, this foot is made to go slower. So it is a lot slower. So I've got my speed all the way up to maximum, and I'm going to start slow, but then I'm going to pedal to the metal and just pound on it, and it's going to go as fast as it's going to go. Okay, the machine knows that side cutter stitch setting that we chose knows to go to sew slower because it knows we have the side cutter foot on. Okay, now watch here, watch your fingers, don't get your finger in there. This is the blade, so this is what's going to cut your fabric. So as you're sewing, the needle is doing your overcast stitch, and then the blade is going up and down and cutting your fabric. Okay, so I'm going to go full speed now. And I'm just holding, I'm not pushing, pulling, forcing, I'm just guiding the fabric and trying to keep it as straight as possible. This is literally pedal to the metal, so yeah, it is a lot slower stitch, but it's one of the closest one that's going to get you closest to a serger stitch. I probably won't go all the way down. Oh, there it is. I was looking for my sample I made earlier. Probably won't go all the way down. I should have made a shorter sample, sorry. Because we're already at 9 minutes. I try to do short videos and I am just so long-winded. It just never happens. Even my short videos are like 8 minutes long, so sorry about that. We're almost to the end anyway. Okay, so it's just cutting along. I'm a fast sewer too, so that doesn't help. So now the blade is about to cut off the fabric here. Now our fabric's cut, so now we're just going to sew to the end, and you'll want to stop as close to the end as you can, and I like to stop with my needle in the left hand position on the left side, okay? So I'm going to do a locking stitch. If you don't have the locking stitch, again, you can just press the back stitch. A lot of these decorative stitches, they're not going to actually move backwards. The needle will move up and down, and the thread will wrap around the needle, so it ties a little knot on the underside of your fabric. Okay, so I'm just going to lock that into place. Then you can use your cutter. My foot allows me to cut, so I'm just going to cut the thread. And then I have a knee lift as well to lift my foot. And again, you don't want to pull off to the side unless you're clear of that bar. So I typically pull back and around. Okay, and this is the stitch it's going to give you. So it cut our fabric, it encased the edges. I have white bobbin thread, but our stitches meet perfectly on that top edge, just like it would with a serger. And then we have our row of straight stitches that are going to lock everything into place. So we have not only a nice professional inseam, we'll also have a nice professional outer seam. Okay, so you could take this to the ironing board, iron it. I'm just going to finger press it. And now you have a nice flat seam that emulates a serger stitch. Okay, again, it's not the same, not nearly as fast. So if I come over here, actually, let's just do that real quick. Let me slide you over, turn this off. I'll show you the difference. So a serger to me is worth it. I love my serger. I have a Brother 1634D. Okay. It is so much faster, so much smoother, so much easier. Now you can take the foot, lift it here or lift it here, put your fabric underneath and butt it up to the needle. But with a serger, you don't really even have to do that. Okay, so I'm just going to slide this under, put it where I want my seam allowance. Can you see? Yes. And then we're just going to sew, and the machine is going to pull it under with the feed dog system. Same thing, so much faster, so much easier. So the sergers really are worth it, especially if you do a lot of edge stitching or garment sewing. I use this for a lot of things though, not just garment sewing. I use it for like bowl cozies, for, not bowl cozies, I'm sorry, coasters, things of that nature. This was a sample I did a couple of weeks ago, just showing how to sew in the round on the serger, but you can use it for makeup pads, makeup removal pads, towels, pretty much anything where you have a raw edge and you want to seal that edge in, you can use a serger for it. So there's a lot of usages for a serger, and in my opinion, they are well worth it. But if you don't have one or you don't want to spend the expense, then you do have several other options, as in these side cutters, or even just use your overcasting feet. Okay, your G foot. These are like $5. $5 on Amazon. You can replace these, okay? Super cheap. Get a stitch in the ditch foot. This is going to work. An edging foot is going to work. I have compensating feet. I have blind hem feet. Pretty much anything you have is going to work. I'm not trying to sell you something or make you go buy something that you don't need. It's just that these are just a nice option to have, and to have in your arsenal, I guess, to use. So it's completely up to you, but they don't replace the serger. They just help you to seal those edges and cut the edges at the same time. So anyways, hope that helps.